So you're a killer?
Sir, yes, sir!
Let me see your war face.
Sir!
You got a war face? Ah! That's a war face. Now let me see your war face.
Ah!
Bullshit. You didn't convince me. Let me see your real war face.
Ah!
You don't scare me. Work on it.
Hey guys, what is going on? Chris here, as always with Shughead Gaming, bringing you my review for Honor and Duty D-Day, developed by Strange Games Studios and released February 26, 2019 on the PS4 and exclusively in VR for PSVR. This is selling for an estimated price of $8, and of course, that depends on your region. As usual, this game was reviewed on the PS4 Pro, and for this review, I will only be covering the VR portion, because why on earth would you want to play this any other way? Honor and Duty D-Day is a 32-player online multiplayer shooter very much inspired by the Battlefield series and the first few entries in the Call of Duty series. Grab your squad, pick a class, and head out into War Soldier. Snipe, drive, heal, or just plain mow down the enemy. It's up to you. This ambitious title attempts a lot for a VR title, let alone by such a small indie studio. Does it succeed? Let's find out. As always guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button, and if you'd like to see more PSVR content from me, please consider subscribing, and for video updates, hit that bell icon. And remember, if you want more PSVR news and info, check Shughead Gaming out on Twitter and Facebook. Sony has long held the stance that they do not allow early access titles. Often this has been to our detriment, as our console may see titles even years later as a result of delayed development on the PS4 build, or simply not allowing consumers to decide if they want to buy in early and often at a budget price to get in early while helping a game develop and grow into a polished product. Sold as a final game, Honor and Duty D-Day is very much an early access title in every way. Sold at a bargain price, light on content and rough around the edges, Honor and Duty D-Day as it stands needs some work. That being said, Strange Games Studio has a track record of listening to players and making significant changes to improve a given game. With multiple betas leading up to this final release and multiple patches just in the first few weeks since launch, Honor and Duty D-Day is a game very much still in development, except now with a helpful and passionate community involved to take it to the next level. As always, my review will be honest, thorough, and likely tough, but I encourage you to take this as a first in a series of follow-up reviews as we watch this highly ambitious and exciting game grow. With that, let's start this review off with a look at graphics. Honor and Duty D-Day is definitely a game that has chosen ambition and scope over detail and polish. Coming off like Battlefield 5 had a love child with Wreck Royale, Honor and Duty isn't often a looker, but is often impressive in its own right, simply for the scale in which it attempts to create. Character and gun model animations are lacking in wooden, texture details are practically non-existent, while lighting and shadow effects for what there is of them are lackluster and in some cases detrimental to the overall experience. All this being said, it's hard not to catch yourself pausing in awe as you look out onto these huge levels populated with 32 of your closest PSVR community friends while they fight it out on rooftops, drive vehicles, and run through war-torn trenches. Honor and Duty is definitely a game that is greater when you look at it with the sum of its parts. Examined piece by piece, the game often comes up short, but the sheer ambition that is being attempted here and by a one-man team is unprecedented in VR. Currently, the two issues that I would really like to see addressed is inconsistent frame rate. Much improved from past betas, this still happens occasionally on all maps, but is most prominent in the city level, most likely due to its more demanding level architecture. Secondly, Honor and Duty D-Day, despite its simpler graphics, remains to see higher than average anti-aliasing issues, resulting in jagged environments that at times can be fairly distracting. This isn't everywhere, and draw distances remain impressive and clear, but pro support to help sharpen up these large open environments would be a huge asset if patched in. However, while many may stay away and write this game off based simply on its cartoon-styled graphics, Honor and Duty D-Day is an experience that when you find yourself charging across the battlefield or riding shotgun with your squad, it's really hard not to appreciate. Sound is up next.
The enemy is capturing our control point.
Like the visuals, the audio is definitely a bit on the rough side of things. Unfortunately, where the visuals as a whole still worked, on the audio side of things there seems to be a lot more work to be done. Gun sounds are acceptable given the cartoon nature of everything, but still the lack of authenticity and just the sense of power is completely lacking. On the plus side, all the guns do seem to have their own unique sounds, including reloading clips and rounds, with the sniper rifles coming off particularly decent. Otherworld sounds like the planes overhead, the drivable vehicles, or simply the distant sounds of gunfire all sound very gamey and artificial. And speaking of distant gun sounds, the ambient audio loops of distant gunfire need to go. While I appreciate the intent of making the battlefields feel alive, the execution here only made me paranoid of incoming attacks, while I acted like a meth addict on the battlefield searching for the figment enemy soldiers. Eventually this led to a complete lack of my ability to locate actual enemy players based on sound and made the whole aspect of spatial audio irrelevant. Music here is of the generic symphonic variety and wouldn't be too offensive if it wasn't for the fact that the music and at times the entire audio mix would stutter or drop out entirely, and often. Voice work is relegated mostly to one Brian Paul, and while he doesn't have much to do here, what is here is done well as he commands his troops of game cats into battle. And that brings us to gameplay. Honor and Duty D-Day's elevator pitch would go something like this. It's a large-scale PvP online World War II shooter inspired by the Battlefield series, but in VR. Now yes, I know it's also playable in flat, but with the options available to flat gamers, I simply don't see the draw. For PSVR headsets though, being able to run around a giant battlefield with 32 players all likely holding an aim controller was, like I said before, purely science fiction only a few years ago, and yet, here we are. Currently, Honor and Duty consists of 4 maps, the original 2 from the beta consisting of the beach attack and the small town, and these are joined by 2 drastically superior maps in the form of an open battlefield complete with trenches and pillboxes, and my current favorite, that of the city map, featuring some awesome elevations. Joining an online server currently has these maps on shuffle in addition to mixing up the modes of team deathmatch and a point and capture mode. And it should be mentioned that matches are hosted on an online server, so you don't have to worry about a game dropping out if a player decides to leave and they're the host. These traditional multiplayer maps are also joined by a standalone Battle Royale map in which 32 players parachute in, and well, you know what happens next. Battle Royale to me felt a bit tacked on as its map and execution feel half-baked when compared to the standard maps. Think a superior gun game to Wreck Royale, but with a map that just feels like assets were dropped in, making the gameplay and the map just feel like it's not intentional or special. Gunplay is obviously king in Honor and Duty D-Day, and for the most part it nails it. Guns feel good, and although they are comically big in your hands, a patch downloading as I write this allows for custom gun scaling. Across 4 classes, 3 of which are rank locked, you will play with a huge assortment of firearms ranging from assault rifles, heavy machine guns, handguns, shotguns, bazookas, and my personal favorite, and worth a special mention, sniper rifles. The sniper rifle implementation is fantastic and easily the best example of how to do this on PSVR. With a scope that functions in real time, you can look down it and use it at any time, and at any distance from your face. Bringing it up close to your face locks you into a tight scope view, making targeting very easy and so much fun. In a game built around large battlefields, sniping here feels great, and easily a highlight at this point in the game's development. All other weapons handle well and seem to be much better balanced than in previous betas. Honor and Duty D-Day is easily at its best when playing and communicating in a squad. One of my favorite additions to the Battlefield series was squads, allowing you to spawn on squad mates and stay in the action. Thankfully, this same game mechanic is here in Honor and Duty, and with the recent update bringing in the ability to choose your specific spawn point, is now made even better. While Honor and Duty D-Day may not be as polished as, say, the remarkable Firewall Zero Hour, it is a game full of moments, and with such a large playground, the opportunities for these moments are so many more. Taking control of a tactical elevation point or suppressing a bunch of players from your pillbox with your squad mates in tow is just plain gaming goodness, and made all the more incredible in VR. However, not all aspects of this open world feel ready for prime time, most apparent being vehicles. Often not really required given the map layouts, when the need does arise you're often met with mixed results, depending on your controller choice. This is especially the case with tanks, that while incredibly cool to be inside, and I mean literally inside, they're often marred with control problems such as the inability to switch seats, a tank that wants to pull to the side, or simply just not drive at all. Let me be clear, I love vehicles in my open world shooters, but here it just doesn't feel ready and often comes off as feeling tacked on because they could. Control choices are robust here in Honor and Duty. DS4, move controllers, or the aim controller are all supported with many variations in between. Want to use an aim controller but have your sidearm or grenade on a separate move controller? Done. Don't have an aim but still want analog stick control? Pick up your DS4 in your left hand and a move in your right hand and have at her. While I love the choice and they all fundamentally work, outside of simply using the aim, they all seem to have their own set of issues. DS4 usage in VR requires you to literally aim the controller, similar in fashion to Farpoint and Firewall. While this made sense for balancing issues in those games, here in Honor and Duty, when flat gamers are running around with traditional first-person controls, it's just weird. Dual move controllers obviously have their inherent issues due to no fault of Strange Game Studios, and instead due to the lack of analog sticks. However, the issues with the moves are magnified here due to the odd design choices, limiting walking speed depending on if you have your hands up or not, making for a frustrating experience. Using the DS4 when combined with a move worked well, but it seemed to be missing some button mapping for some key control aspects. Using the aim with a move controller as a sidearm, while awesome in theory, really requires some rigging on the part of the individual so that it wasn't slow or cumbersome, often resulting in a dropped controller. In addition to all these quirks I just mentioned, changing these controllers while you're in the menu always resulted in additional controls not working, and most prominent when getting into vehicles. As a result, going in with the aim controller on its own is my recommendation, as it just worked. Tracking is similar to Firewall 0 Hour in that it can be a bit finicky, and even worse when working with a low charge controller. However, with some proper camera placement, tracking was good, even when sniping. Motion sickness could be an issue due to the full locomotion, but no, there are a full suite of comfort options available. This game can be played seated or standing, and with a moderate amount of room required to leave room for some waving arms and controllers. So the question remains, issues aside, when it comes to overall gameplay, does Honor and Duty D-Day still work as a game? Yes, absolutely yes. It could use more maps, better gameplay balancing, and just some overall polish and optimization, but it has good bones, and it exists as a very good foundation for a game in constant growth and change. And finally, that brings us to fun factor and my final review. I apologize for being so delayed on putting out this review. This game simply required more time to play and digest, and deserved more than just shitting out a review for time and click's sake. Honor Duty D-Day succeeds at the most important aspect, and that is fun factor. Firewall 0 Hour this is not, as it is nowhere near the polished and potent experience that is, but for some, its drop-in and play, run-and-gun arcade approach may be more appealing. Yes, I want Honor and Duty D-Day to be more, to be better, and most importantly, be the game it could be. However, as it stands right now, it's still an ambitious and fun title that is getting better almost every day with a steady stream of patches. And that leads me to my final review. I rate games on a basis of buy, wait for a sale, or burn it to the ground. At $8, this game is an absolute buy for shooter fans. If not for the game it is now, buy it and support it for the game it could be. Honor and Duty D-Day represents everything I hold dear in VR. It's ambitious, fun, and genre-defining, or at least it wants to be. And it stands as a game that isn't willing to play within the conceived bullshit limitations of VR. This game may lack big game studio support, but what it doesn't lack is big game ambition. For that alone, it's worth the price of admission and still remains a fun time in VR, even if it is a bit of a flawed one.